games. It's ScrubGames. Drop a like, drop a sub, go ahead and subscribe to ScrubGames. Drop a like, drop a sub, go ahead and subscribe to ScrubGames.
How's it going, Scrub Gamers? Welcome back to another video here at ScrubGames, and today we've got something I don't do too often, and that is a tier list. So we're going to go over and do a tier list of the leaders, since they're all revealed now. All the leaders from set 5 have been revealed, but since we haven't really got long, we still have got just, I think, around about a month, or just over a month, or maybe a little under a month, until the set actually releases. This is going to be my theory tier list, so basically where I feel they will be in the meta based on like what the leaders do and the tiny little bit of testing I've done with each of them. So we're going to get into that, and with the tiers we have here, we have meta, strong, good, okay, and trash. So they'll probably explain themselves with what they are called, but just to quickly go over it, meta is an acronym, if you didn't know. It stands for most effective tactics available. So that's what it means when you say meta in card games. That's what it refers to as an acronym, not just a normal word. But then you have the metagame, where the most effective tactic available in that game. So for the first one, meta, that's that basically means the decks that you're going to be expecting to see at high level play, like doing well in events, and also ones that you're going to be, when building a deck, you'll be preparing your deck and building to combat. Then we have strong, so these are decks that are not going to be most effective, but they're still pretty powerful and can potentially contend with the meta decks. So that is strong. Then we got good, and these are ones that are not meta. They're not incredibly strong, but they are pretty good. Like, they can do pretty well. You can maybe see a top there, here and there, and they're ones that I expect to do pretty nicely. Now, okay are ones that aren't amazing, aren't the best, but they're alright. They're more like ones that you may play casually, you may take the locals just to have fun. They're not terrible, but they're not amazing or the greatest, but they're alright. We've got trash. This is the leaders that I feel are terrible, aren't really relevant, aren't really going to do anything, and just aren't worth printing. Like examples from previous sets, you've got IG-88, you've got Padme Amidala, leaders like that are just like you never really see play, or barely ever see play, and are just not great. Not only are they leaders that have other leaders in the same aspect to do what they want to do, but a lot better, or just better options, but they're just not even worth running, to be honest. So those are the tiers and what we're going to go over. Now, do remember, before we get into it, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It keeps you updated with my videos as and when they drop. And also by clicking that notification bell, you can get alerts when my videos do drop, so you can watch them there and then or at a later time that suits you best. And we are still on our way to 2,000 subs, and we're just under 80 subs away from our goal of 2,000, so every little bit helps. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. It helps us out. And if you have already subscribed, thank you very much. So without further ado, let's get into it in rank and what tier these are leaders. So we're going to start off with a in the order of the aspects for our leader order from 1 to 18. So we're going to start off with Kylo. So Kylo is a pretty interesting one. So if you don't know what he does, because the reveals, the reveals have been out for long enough by now, by the time this comes up. So you might know about it, but Kylo is one that is revolving around upgrades. So he's got a similar effect to... No, he hasn't got a similar effect to anybody, really. I can think of... No, he's got a similar effect to Trench, where you can dish a card from hand and filter through your deck a bit quicker by dishing a card and drawing a card. Now, unlike Trench, he's got more restriction, whereas Trench can discard anything that costs 3 or more to basically just draw a card. Kylo Ren has the ability to discard a card, and if it was an upgrade that you discarded, you get to draw a card. So you can discard any card from your hand, so that means you can set up some pretty nice plays. You can even set up things like, you can very easily set up things like Anakin by putting some heroic card in your deck and just discarding that whenever you draw into him. But then if you discard an upgrade, then you get to go ahead and essentially just draw a card. So this means you can help filter your deck, and you might be thinking, what's the point of that? You just filter for your deck. All you're doing is filtering for your deck, using action to discard a card and filter through. You're not really gaining anything. But it does actually help set up his deploy, because he deploys at 7 resources, so quite late to deploy. Not the latest, but quite late. And when he does deploy, he has a when deploy. He's a 5/5 Sentinel when he deploys, so not the best stats, but Sentinel's pretty nice to pick your ground arena and base from the ground units. And then when he does deploy, you can play any number of upgrades from your discard pile onto him by paying the costs. So that means if you deploy him at 7, you get to put 7 7 resources worth of upgrades on him, but you do have to do one at a time. So it means you can load them up, make him huge, and there are some pretty nice upgrades in the new set, and also older ones that you can put to make him like basically a beast. Now you can play him in multiple different aspects for this, because you get some really good ones. Like you've got some really good ones in red, you've got some good ones in double blue, yellow, and green. So you've got full aspects are pretty good for him to play. And I've been testing him in yellow just because I like the fact that Shadow Intentions is something that can protect him from being defeated, and there's a lot of upgrades that can give him a lot of health and also a good amount of power. So you've got new ones in the set. There's a 1 cost that gives him extra 1 free to stats, and then you've got other ones that give 2 free and things like that, give some effects like Shadow Intentions giving him invulnerability to defeating effects and stuff like that, and also things that give him Saboteur, making so it can't be rested. Like all those nice things that you can put in it, so you can build up a huge unit and just smack your do a 1-man army kind of thing. And because of this, I don't think he is meta. I don't think he's the most effective tactics, because you can play a lot of control in the other version. You got ramp in the green version. You got just constant damaging from the red, and you've got removal from the blue. So he's pretty good, but I feel like he's pretty strong. So I'm going to put him in the strong tier, because I feel he is a pretty strong leader, but not meta defining or very meta. There's some kind of things where if he starts to become meta, you can put in just to ruin him. So if you don't see Shadow Intentions, a simple Rivals Fall takes him down. So yeah, he's got some issues, but he is pretty strong, and he has tested pretty well so far. So I feel he could be a strong leader into the next one. So that is my first one. So it'll be quite long span. I'll try and make it a bit simpler for the rest, but that is my first one, being Kylo. Now for the next one, we're going to go over Talzin. So Talzin's pretty good one, and remember, with this new set becomes a new mechanic, and that is using the Force. And the Force is a token you can get, so whenever you can use things to generate the Force to gain the Force token, and then use that Force token, so lose the Force token to use the Force for effects to trigger them. And Talzin is one of those leaders that requires you to use a new mechanic of using the Force to be able to use her effect. But that's only when it's in the leader area, so once she's in the leader area, you need to generate the Force, and there are different ways to do it. There's quite a few different ways to do it, but one of the most common ways to do it is by attacking with a Force unit using the new common bases. And her effect when you do use the Force is to give a unit -1/1 to the fate stats. So minusing power and health, so minusing something by 1/1 to the stats is pretty good. And that pretty much combos pretty well with with red doing damage, being able to damage it so they're enough, and then make them a little bit lower, making things a little bit weaker, and then in range of damage. Also good for some things like takedown, being able to put something in range of takedown. So when they were 6 health, but now they're 5 health, now just take them out, and that's pretty nice. And I reckon she is pretty nice because she does the same thing when she deploys as well. But now when she deploys, it's an on attack and it doesn't require the Force. So when she deploys, she's stronger, and that she comes down as a free 7. So pretty good stats, and also doesn't need the Force anymore to do it, and just does it by attacking, but still does the same thing of minus or something. She doesn't gain any extra minusing, still just 1/1, but still decent and doesn't need to use Force, which is pretty nice. And offers you, like every leader does, the Force trait, which is cool. So I think she's also pretty strong. I don't think she's stronger than Kylo, but I think she is still pretty strong, so I'm going to put her in strong just behind Kylo. I don't know if I'll continue to rank leaders above or higher than them, but I think Talzin could be a very nice one. I'm looking forward to testing her a bit more within red, and you could go green with ECL to have the new Vader and stuff, but then you lose out on gaining things to gain the Force, actually make use of her. So she's kind of one of those leaders. With any leader that needs to use the Force, they need to use the Force mechanic to function pretty much. So you need the Force stuff. So you're only going for the Force bases instead of the some other bases for error benefits. But yeah, she's a pretty nice one, so I'm going to put her up there in strong, and now we're going to move on to the heroic side. So for the heroic side, the next one we've got is Ahsoka, and this is one that I feel is good. I put her in, I think she's good, because she's got pretty decent stats. She's all about making, or her effects all about making things into Sentinels, so defending yourself by making things into a Sentinel, which means if you've got something that has a when defeated or has got, like in heroism, you've got some things that have not the biggest amount of power, but good amount of HP, so they're kind of tanky, and turning them into a Sentinel to swing into is pretty nice. And one thing I do like is you can play the Wookiees as well, which is in most of our aspects. And with the Wookiees, they have a good amount of health, but they don't have too much power. But then most of them have things like grit, meaning that the more damage they have, the stronger they get, which means you can force your opponent's attack into one of your Wookiees. That makes them stronger so they can hit back a little bit harder. But she's just never a leader that needs to use the Force. So once again, she's got to gain the Force. And the issue with the Force mechanic is if your opponent can prevent you from gaining the Force, then you're not going to really do anything, your leader. And since she doesn't do anything like Talzin, which actually mainly tries to help deal with your opponent's stuff, then she isn't as effective. So I think she's a little bit weaker than Talzin, but still a pretty good leader. And of course, with pretty decent stats at 5'6", is pretty good. 6 deploy is quite late. It's not the greatest for her kind of stats though, but she has got the Force trait. There are better leaders in Force. Like there's a lot of Force leaders in the heroic blue aspects, and she's competed with those ones, and I feel like she isn't as strong as some of the other ones, even with the next one we're going to go over. Speaking of our next leader we're going to go over, and that is Kanan. And Kanan, I feel, is a well, I don't think if he would be meta, that's the problem. Like, will he be meta? Because he is pretty strong. Like, he's got a nice little ability where you can pay 1 and give a friendly specter or creature a shield. Now, giving shields is similar to Luke. Luke does something shields, but Luke deploys a little bit later, and he's give it to whatever you've played. That's heroic. Where Kanan still also, they both have the same kind of thing where you have to pay a resource behind. You have to pay 1 to be able to give a shield to. You can't just give it free. And they do also have restrictions on what they give shields to, because Luke has to give a shield token to whatever you played that same phase that is heroic, whereas Kanan only can give it to any kind of unit as long as it's got the creature or specter trait. And specters is pretty good. Like we saw, Hera has there are a lot of good specter cards. Like specters are a pretty good trait, and it's nice to have a leader that's a little bit better than Hera that actually does something to kind of help him out. And in probably Barriss, because most of the time the green leader is kind of a little bit lackluster in heroic side. Before. Now Kanan, I feel, is pretty good. I feel he's more strong than he's meta. I think he's stronger than both these two. I think he's stronger than both Talzin and Kylo. That's just my opinion. Because when he comes down, he does come down as I think it's a free. I think he comes down as a free 6, if I remember correctly, because I haven't got it up here. I'm just because I'm recording. But actually, I can quickly check, just make sure I'm quoting it right. So he comes down as a free 6, but then he comes out shielded. So he comes out with a shield on, so that's pretty nice to protect him there. And where you control any other creature or specter unit, he gains an extra 2/2. So if you got a creature or specter that you've hopefully shielded with his effect, he is now a 5/8 on deploy instead of a 3/6. Even then, 3/6 is pretty decent, pretty respectable. Not the greatest for his deploy cost or deploy turn now, but then he can bump up to a 5/8, which is still pretty strong, and shielded as well. So I think he's pretty nice. His effect is overall pretty good. So I think he's going to be a strong leader. So that's the blue ones. So far the blue ones are strong and good. So we got 3 strong ones in Kanan, Kylo, and Talzin, and we got a good one in Ahsoka. So now we move on to the green ones, and these are pretty interesting, these ones. So then moving on with the green leaders, we have first one being Morgan Elsbeth. Now for this one, let me just pull up to see what she does, because I can't remember exactly what it was. So she's all about playing something with a new keyword. So you've got an action when she is in the lead area, where you can choose a friendly unit, As long as it attacked this phase, you can play a unit from your hand that has the same keyword as it, but it costs 1 less. So interesting to play stuff at reduced cost, but the issue is you got to share keywords. Now, it's not too bad to share keywords because there's quite a few keywords in the game. You've got some pretty nice ones, like Shield is a pretty good one, where you got quite a few units of Shield and you kind of want to get coming in print and have them kind of share them. But there's not. There's quite a few keywords you can put with it, but then you've got to have that. You won't be able to get the use of this until at least turn 2, because then you need to have a unit you play turn 1, have that unit attack, have that unit still be on board, and then go ahead and use their effect. Then so you can play a 4 cost on turn 2, but it's got the same share keyword, which means you got to plan with your keywords. You don't want too many different keywords because then you might not be getting much out of it. But yeah, it's quite an interesting one. And when she deploys, it's the same kind of thing, but it's on attack. So the next unit you play as phase costs 1 less if it shares a keyword with a friendly unit. So you play it immediately on the leader side, and then you play it whenever you want. Well, the next time you play a unit when she attacks, when she's deployed. So it's pretty interesting. I'm not sure how great it's going to be. Like for now, I am going to put her at okay because I feel she's decent. Like reducing the cost of a card to play is pretty nice, but it feels like too many restrictions. Like if your opponent prevents you from attacking with a unit, you're never going to pull this off, and that can sometimes be easy to do. Now her stats are pretty good. She's an Imperial unit, so you got a benefit of the Imperial stuff from set 1. From out the sets we've got some good Imperial stuff. There's not really much benefit in Knight at the moment, but then she's got the Force trait like all leaders have, so she's got benefit of having that. But then in her own aspect in green, there's not many Force beneficial cards or even Force units as it is. So you're not getting many benefits there. But I think one keyword that a lot of green cards seem to have, I think, is ambush. You can make a good use of ambush, which is cool, and you can also play it with a partner with a Neville. But ambush, you've got to have the unit can attack straight away, so you can get that trigger. But then you've got to have it survive and keep them on board. Now, I think she's okay. I'm not sure. I might be wrong about this, but I think she's just okay at the moment. I just have to see. Like we've seen the whole set, and I haven't seen much that seems to be like really appeals from when I've looked at her and looked at the set. So I think she's a good, okay leader, but that's it at the moment. So next one we have let's have a look at the next one, and that is Supreme Leader Snoke. So Supreme Leader Snoke, he just feels like a new Tarkin. He just feels like a new Tarkin to me because he's got the exact same thing where when he's in the leader area, you've got to pay 1 and tap him, and you essentially give experience to units. So Tarkin does the same thing in that he has to pay 1, tap him, and then he gives 1 experienced unit experience to any one of your Imperial units. So you've got more restriction. You've got restriction in that he's got to be on Imperials, but luckily he is an Imperial leader himself. And there are a fair few Imperial units that we've had since the beginning of the game, like from the first episode a lot. So there's a good amount of Imperials for him to use on. And he's in pretty good aspects in green Villainy, because he's got good access to ramp. And you've even got Super Laser Technician as a ramp card that you can buff up, and then your opponent's got to deal with it, but then it ramps you, things like that. And he's got pretty good stats. Like he comes out 1 later than Tarkin, has the same health, but has I think 2 more power. Yeah, 2 more power than Tarkin, so he's a little bit stronger than Tarkin. Same health, but comes out a turn later. And they both have the same kind of restricted, cost at paying 1 and tapping, but they have different things they can put them on and different kind of restriction. Would be different restrictions. So Tarkin is only on Imperials, but no limit, and just on Imperials and you get to choose. Whereas Snoke, it just back buffs up whatever is your strongest unit. So whatever's unit strongest on your board gets stronger. And the issue with that I see is that if you're making things stronger, like putting all your eggs in one basket, if it's just taken out, then you've just lost all that benefit, especially against like blue, which is a popular aspect throughout the game, which just takes out and you make it even easier for them to kill using things like Ravels will make it a little bit easier. Now, the nice thing about him and instead of Tarkin is that when he does deploy an attack, Tarkin can't give an experience himself. When he attacks, he has to give experience to another Imperial unit. Whereas Snoke, if he's the only thing on the board or the strongest thing on the board, he can swing and buff himself up because it's just when he's deployed. His effect is just on attack, giving experience token to a unit, not another unit, a unit with the most power among friendly villainy units. So that's the thing. He's got to give it the villainy, but then you play on villainy side, so you're gonna have those anyway. But the nice thing about him, so one little thing that's beneficial from him from Tarkin is he can buff himself. And that's pretty nice, and he's also for free, just like how Tarkin is for free when he's deployed. So that's pretty nice there. But the thing with Tarkin is he hasn't been the best. He's been alright. Once again, just like Snoke, he's got good aspects. If you want to go with a blue base, you've got access to the good villainy blue-green kind of core, like the control kind of things, and just destruction of Ombrage, things like that, Power Dark Side, nice things like that. But Tarkin's only really seen play in the form of yellow due to having busted things like Triple Dark Raid when it was not suspended, and also because of the I can't remember the name of the unit now, but it's the free cost unit that can't be defeated. Defeated. I think maybe captured or something like it's very, very difficult to take out. Very difficult to take out. And by giving it experience, because it's an Imperial unit, giving it experience, more and more experience, it becomes way too big to deal with, and then can't be taken out. It just becomes a juggernaut. And that was the benefit of Tarkin. And since the ban Triple Dark Raid, Tarkin's barely seen play. I haven't seen him since, because Triple Dark Raid allowed him to get those kind of units out and get the good space unit. Go space focus was like the key to space in the beginning from Offset 2. But since that ban, he's not really been about. And since Snoke does the same thing with him, I can't see him be about. But Snoke being able to buff himself, it gives him that extra bit there. So I feel like with Snoke, he is going to be a good leader. I think better than Ahsoka, where he's not amazing, but he's good in the fact that when he does deploy, at least he can buff himself. Whereas Tarkin, if you took out everything else apart from him, he's buffing nothing. He's just swinging for 2 and that's it. He's doing nothing. Whereas Snoke at least buffing himself, making himself even stronger. And it's already hard to take on leaders, so making yourself stronger makes it even harder for you to deal with him as well. And being a Force unit Force leader is way more beneficial than it was with Tarkin not having Force trade. Like, Force is very cool, and yeah, Tarkin is just basically a better Tarkin now. So that is that one. So that is Snoke. Snoke is being pretty good. Now we move on to the heroic side of it, and let's have a look at these. So for our next one, we've got Avar Kriss. So this is one from the Old Republic, as far as I'm aware. Pretty nice one. The latest deploy we've ever got at 9 resources. So she comes down pretty late at 9. But she is kind of the opposite with the Force leaders, because she's not one that needs to use the Force. She actually gains you the Force. So unlike with the Ever units or Ever cards that need to use the Force, you need to gain the Force token, you need to do things like attacking or play something that gives you the Force, things like that. Avar Kriss, just use her effect, tap her, you gain the Force. The Force is with you, you gain your Force token. So she makes it so you can always have your Force, your cards that require the Force, which is quite a few of them in the set, live by just gaining the Force. So you can, it's a nice little action to kind of do a pass without passing, but actually doing an action to kind of technically pass by just gaining you the Force. That means that if you ever need the Force, you're readily available there. Rather than have to attack with a unit, which your opponent can kind of prevent you from doing, you just gain the Force, they can't really stop you. So this makes things like Jedi Consulate very, very powerful with Avar Kriss, because you can play it as early as turn 2 because it's a 2-cost unit. Gain the Force, that means straight away from the second turn, you can throw out a 5-drop without needing things like now there are 2 of them, things like that. You can just throw out a 5-drop thanks to that, by having Force and just gain the Force back and keep making use of that card without more things earlier, which is very nice. Now, she does deploy quite late, but the nice thing about her deploy is that she's got a little extra bit in it, where she deploys at 9, or she can deploy, well, she deploys either at 9 or earlier, depending on how many times you use the Force. So the more times you use the Force, the less she needs, or less resources you need to deploy her. So every time you use the Force, it takes off one of her deploy. So if you use the Force once in that turn, then her deploy is reduced by 1. So instead of being 9, it's 8. So if you use the Force twice, it goes from down to 7. So you can deploy her at 7 instead of 9. So the more times you can use the Force, the more time earlier you can deploy her. But the thing is that when she deploys, you kind of need to have the Force with you, because she comes down as a 4-10, so a big ass, but not too much on power, 4 power, especially for such a late drop at 9. So yeah, so she comes out quite weak, but quite bulky. But then if you have the Force with you, she also gets an extra 4 power and overwhelm. So if you've got the Forces with you when you deploy her, she comes at 8-10 pierces, which is very, very strong. You don't no longer easily gain the Force because she's now out. She's not gaining your Force, but while you have the Force, she keeps smashing quite hard. So I think she's pretty nice, and I think she might be a meta leader. Now, it's probably wrong. Probably people are going to be shouting this, like, how could she be a meta leader? Well, the thing with this set is the Force, and the Force seems like a very strong mechanic, very good mechanic. But the problem with some of the Force leaders that need to use the Force is just generating the Force token. Whereas Avar Kriss can just gain it. She has pretty nice, even though she's green, she's got in there aspect of ramp, so she can ramp up the drop player earlier, and she can set up things straight away that require the Force, meaning she's got easy makes use of all the good stuff that needs the Force in each aspect, which is nice. And also, then you get also access to all the best stuff. I mean, she doesn't have to pack in tons of Force cards just to be able to gain the Force. She can just play normally like most leaders can before it. Now, don't need the Force, and just play it, but then have the Force ready available when she needs to use this new Force stuff. Right, so that brings us to the last one, and that is Obi-Wan Kenobi. So, with Obi-Wan Kenobi, he is a nice little leader that can buff up things. So, he is never one of those leaders that needs to use the Force, so once again, needs to generate a Force token. And he has a nice benefit to it, because his ability that needs to use the Force is to give a unit that doesn't have any experience on it an experience token. So it means you can buff up any unit that doesn't have experience by giving it an experience token. So that's really nice. So once you got the Force, you can just go, I'll use it, increase that unit, so give any unit that doesn't have an experience token on it an extra 1/1. So if you don't have an experience, have an experience. Or if you have an experience, can have it, but you can just basically making any unit essentially an extra 1/1 stronger and bulkier is very good. And it's a nice way to use the Force. And also, he is quite an early deploy at 5 resources, pretty nice. Comes down with solid stats at a 3/6 as well, so out of the way range to take down, and also Force unit to deploy quite early. And when his ability sticks around, but now, like with a Talzin, he doesn't now need to use the Force. So when he deploys, he doesn't need to use the Force anymore. Just when he attacks, you can give an experience token to another unit without an experience token on it. So it means you can get 2 buffs on 2 different units the same turn he deploys. And being in green, he has access to ramp, so you can deploy him earlier, so you can deploy it out turn 4 technically by using resupply and things like that. He also has, being green and being a Jedi, he has access to instantly, without having to put green with him, General's Blade, which is very cool, making him pretty strong there. And also just buffing up all your things, so turning things like Mace Window, the 7 drop, which is normally a 5/7 into a 6/8, is pretty strong, so it can come down, attack, take out something, restand, buff them up, and then swing again. And even turning other things like your Obi-Wan Sentinels in the set from a 3/5 to a 4/6 is pretty strong. Just buffing anything up is really cool. And even in General's Blade is very nice in that you can go ahead and play something cheaper as well. So you can not only buffing this up from a 3/6 to a 6/9, you're also then playing something 2 turns earlier thanks to General's Blade's effect. Now, you got some good benefits each aspect. Well, you got blue that have access to removal, things like Luke and Anakin and stuff like that. You got red that have access to like Force Throw and damage as well, which is pretty nice, and even Mace Window. And then if you got yellow that have access to like resting, buffing, and even like a nice turn 1 unit in Young Padawan, which come in, gain you the Force straight away, so you can instantly put yourself out with a 3/4 on turn 1. I can then start swinging, gain the Force, and be pretty strong. So he's got pretty good options in whatever aspects, and I feel he is also going to be I'm going to say strongly, not meta, because he's not huge, because remember, he has to use the Force, so he's got that benefit, he's got that kind of negativity, and he's got to use the Force, he's got to gain the Force token. It means he can't just have a normal 30 health base, he has to have a Force base, basically just gain the Force. So he's not going to be meta due to having that mechanic have less health just because of that. But I feel he's very strong, probably the top of these leaders here. So that is all the green leaders. So green's doing pretty well. We've got one in almost every, well, one in each tier almost. We've got Avar Kriss, which I feel is going to be meta. Obi-Wan, which I feel is going to be strong. Supreme Leader Snoke, which is going to be pretty good. And then, Morgan Elsbeth, I think is okay. It's okay. So those are the yellow ones. Let's have a look at the red ones and kind of see where we are with those. So for red, we're going to start off with the villainy side, and we're going to start off with Darth Maul. Now, Darth Maul is one of my favorite characters. Is my all-time favorite villain from Star Wars universe, and one of my favorite characters, my second favorite character in all of it, because I grew up with the prequel trilogy of films growing up. So that's where my interest in Star Wars came about, from the prequels. So first film, absolutely love it, and Maul being one of the badass villains in it makes him easily one of my favorites. But for the card game, this is the first time we've got Darth Maul instead of just Maul. So this is Darth Maul from the first film, from Phantom Menace, instead of the other Maul we've got being just Maul, which is from the the Clone Wars. So if you've seen the Clone Wars, you see that's where Maul from. Where this is Darth Maul back when he's actually self under Palpatine, and yeah, this is when he's about to fight both Obi-Wan and also Obi-Wan as a Padawan and Qui-Gon. Now, he's never a leader that needs to use the Force, and his effect to use the Force is just dealing a damage to a unit, then also dealing one damage to a different unit. So kind of how he's got a dual-wielded lightsaber, be able to using that to deal damage to two different things at once, which is very nice. And when he does deploy, he deploys at 6 as a 5/6, so same thing as Ahsoka. Not the best kind of turn to deploy with those stats, but still a lot of power and a decent amount of health to keep him out of takedown range, and pretty decent there. And the same thing, he doesn't no longer needs the Force, but we can attack and then do the same thing, deal one damage to a unit and deal damage to a different unit. So pretty interesting. So you can kind of finish it off. It goes well with his aspects in aggression being just damage based. So you can just throw out damage. So you can play in different things. Not sure how the best play. The starter that comes in with blue. And you've got nice thing you've got with him is he works. I always love the card. No Disintegration is probably one of my favorite cards from the last set. Be able to do damage to a unit until it has 1 health left, and then Maul can use that to finish him off, which is pretty cool. Or if you do if you got the 6 resources, you can do 2 No Disintegration, so 1 on 1, 1 on ever, put them both down to 1 HP, and use Maul both taking both out, which I think is a pretty cool situational, but cool. And being a Force and Sith unit is pretty nice, having good traits. But with his deploying stat, it just kind of feels bad because I love the character so much, but the leader just doesn't feel that great. But I feel he can be pretty good. He's not just okay, because he does something pretty decent, pretty solid stats, and in good aspects. Well, you've got some good Force cards in it. You've got good Force units that we've had for set 1. You've got Fallen Lightsaber to put on him. You've got his own lightsaber to put on him as well. You've got Force Throw, Force Choke, Force Lightning as well. I love that card, and just happy that we've got more things to kind of get the full use and better use of Force Lightning now. And I feel he is pretty good. So I think he's going to be a good one, probably better than Ahsoka, maybe less, not as great as Snoke being a bit better than him, but better than Ahsoka at least. And that's why I'm going to put Maul for this. So it does pay me that I've got to put Maul so low on the list, but yeah, if his effect was a little bit better, it would be nice. But I just love the character, but I can't let that allow me to put him up way too high when it's just not the best, but still good. Then we move on to Fifth Sister, and she is one that deploys a little bit earlier at 5 resources, and her stats are IG level. So that's where I remember when she got revealed, people were going all on about how she had IG level stats. She could be taken out, she can be taken about open fire, takedown, things like that. But then you got to think about if a person's deploying her into open resources to forward to a takedown or open fire, and just not using her correctly. But she's pretty nice because she's got the ability. She doesn't need to use the Force. She's got a nice benefit and doesn't rely on the Force mechanic. The Force mechanic is good, but it is a little bit hindrance having to rely on it and get the Force mechanic so you can actually do something. And she allows you to play out a unit, still paying its cost, but it gains hidden. So play out things with hidden, so they can't be attacked into. Saves you from that annoying keyword that is amazing, being ambush. So being able to play a unit in and have it not be able to be attacked for that phase is pretty handy, making sure units will live to see and never turn unless your opponent's got removal outside, by doing like damage to it or anything that's not attacking. And when she comes out herself, she also is hidden, so she can't be attacked into. So she's got a protection there. And on attack, when she is deployed, the next unit you play gains hidden as well. It's pretty nice. So nice thing is that you can play her out, and she's not going to be attacked into be taken out because 4 health isn't the best. But it means at least your opponent can't attack into her to take her out. So you've got to find different ways. And as long as you play around making sure your opponent's played some of the resources, have done everything, so you can deploy her when they've tapped out most of the resources, you can then go ahead and buff her up with one of the many lightsabers you got in this set and previous sets, like Fallen Lightsaber and stuff like that. So you can buff her up, make her a little bit stronger, so she's more of a threat and less fragile than she is. For this, I think she is pretty good. I'd say she probably is better than Maul. Yeah, I'd say she is better than Maul, but still, once again, not as good as Snoke, but at least better than Maul and Ahsoka. So she's pretty nice, but then you have to build around her player like a certain way, just so you kind of have her survive easy enough. So that's the villainy ones covered. Now we move on to the heroic ones, and we're going to start off with Fisto. So I'm going to straight up put this into trash because, like, when I saw Kit Fisto, I thought that's pretty cool. He is a pretty interesting Jedi, so he was pretty nice there, and he was the first villainy, well, the first heroic, first of the heroic aggression leaders we saw. And being a Force and Jedi, I love when we got the Force and Jedi leaders. But the problem is, his effect isn't too great. He does have an effect. It doesn't require the Force, but it does require you to pay a resource. And as if you attacked with a Jedi unit this phase, you can do 2 damage to a unit. So a good amount of damage doing, paying 1 to do 2 damage. That's pretty good. That's basically a daring raid. Essentially, you're getting a free daring raid every time you can attack. Every turn when you can attack with a Jedi unit. But you've got to play out a Jedi unit, have them survive, have them to attack, then play a resource behind to pay 1 just to do 2 damage to a unit. So helps taking things out, but then you're relying on a trait which, while there are more of them, there isn't too many ones constantly about. And then even then, when he deploys early at 5. That's pretty nice. It's really nice to deploy at 5. It's quite good. Always want that. Want the earlier deploys so you can actually get the leader out quicker. But he comes down with 6 health, which is pretty good outside of takedown range, which is really good. There's a lot few leaders that have 6 health. But the issue is he comes down with 1 power. So he's got 1 power and 6 health. Now he does come with Saboteur, so you can ignore defeat shields and ignore Sentinels, so he's got no issue there. But he's got 1 power. He can, however, be buffed though, because he gains extra 1 power for every ever Jedi unit on board. But that comes as a downside because you've got to have a specific trait in Jedi. You've got to have multiple Jedis on board, which if your opponent's controlling your board, you're not going to have many of live to bust them up. So you rely on other units being out, loads of units being out just to make him worthwhile. So having 2 other units makes him a free 6. You need to have 2 units on board just to make him on par with things like Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he's got no effect outside of that when he deploys. He's got no beneficial effect when he deploys, and he's very weak. And the thing is, given he's got 6 health, and if Jedi becomes a popular kind of thing, then we've got the card back from, I think, set 3 of Execute Order 66, which is a villainy event that does 6 damage to all Jedi units on board, and any Jedi is defeated by this gives the owner of the card that was defeated a clone token. So if KFS even does become popular or does become a good deck, he can be taken out by Execute Order 66, which is going to be a good side card for this next set. So I don't think he's great. He's not got the best kind of effect when not in the lead area. He's not got any effect, really any relevant effect when he is deployed, and he's very, very weak. Rely on every unit just to survive, just so he can do anything. So I'm going to put him straight in trash, because I don't think he's very good. So let's get Fisto. Then next we have Rey. So Rey is the other aggression villainy, and she's one that was kind of like was one of the hints that was in before, where she's all about using Force non-units for effects. Because I think her effect is the action tap 1 if you played a non-unit Force non-unit card this phase. You get to do 1 damage to a unit. So you got to play a certain kind of you got to play non-units of a certain trait being Force, which is there is more now, but not too many. and then you get to do just measly 1 damage to a unit. Now you don't have to pay any resource to do this. That would make her even worse than what her effect actually is, but it's not a great effect. Then she deploys very, very late at 7 resources. Does come up with pretty strong stats as a 6/8, but 7 deploy is we're not really doing anything. Is not great. And then when you do deploy, you can discard your hand, and if you do draw 2 cards, you can discard your entire hand, which hopefully is 1 or less, or the 2 cards you do have are useless. You don't ever want to do it when you got more than 2 cards because you're losing out on value there. And just to draw 2 brand new cards, so it's not really amazing. It's not that great, and that's what I'm going to put her up. Just trash, but I'm going to put her ahead of I don't know where to put her ahead or below Kit Fisto, because she got better stats than Kit Fisto, but she doesn't really do anything where he does a bit more. So I think I might put her as worse than Kit Fisto. I feel like she is pretty trash, and if you can give anything to, if you've got any comments to say about why Rey or Kit Fisto should be not in trash, if you feel they should be in trash, why they shouldn't be, have a little bit of debate about this. If you can give a good reason why they shouldn't be that low and maybe into okay or a bit higher, give me your reasons, and I'll see if I can. Because I can be convinced. Because sometimes I don't see, not everybody sees everything all the time. So there might be something I've missed I didn't think about, but I just don't see anything great about them. But if you can change my mind, feel free to do so. I'll be happy to hear it. So that's the aggression one. So aggression, not so great in this next set. We've got Third Sister and Maul as good leaders, and then the heroic ones, Kit Fisto and Rey, trash. So let's move on to the next one, and that's the last of the color aspects, and let's go into the cunning ones. So with the cunning ones, we have the next one being Barriss Offee. Now this one's pretty interesting because while she is never one that needs to use the Force, so it requires a Force mechanic, she's got a pretty nice effect, which is allowing you to play events a little bit cheaper by reducing the cost. So her effect is an action, which makes you use the Force to lose your Force token and play an event from your hand, reduce its cost by for 1 less. So playing out an event from your hand for 1 less is pretty nice. So playing out things like Overwhelming Barrage for 1 less, being pretty nice. Play it on 4 rather than play it on 5 is pretty cool. Pretty nice there, but once again, you need to use the Force. So you're required to use the Force mechanic to do it, to basically use it. And she does deploy a little bit later at 6 resources, but she comes out at 6 with 4 power, which is pretty good, and 7 health, which is pretty respectable. So pretty good stats for a deploy at 6. With most leaders, we've seen a 5/6, but this one switched up a little bit. It was 4/7, which is pretty nice. Also, Force Jedi and Republic as well, so you get those benefits of the Jedi in the dark side, Republic in the dark side, and also Force as well. And once again, same thing, when she is on the leader side, she now has it, but instead of tapping her, she now just uses action to play an event for your hand. It costs 1 less, but still using the Force. So she's one of the only leaders that one of the only leaders that still has to use the Force when she deploys. So on both sides, she needs to use the Force to be able to go ahead and play an event for 1 less, but being a Force unit itself, she can even attack and gain the Force use off that way. So I think she is pretty good. I think she's pretty nice. I think she might be, because there's a lot of good stuff in Cunning. Just there's not many Force. The thing with Cunning is there's not many Force stuff, especially in the dark side. There's not many Force cards in Cunning from previous sets until this one, and so you want no previous support. But I think she is pretty good. I mean, she's not is a strong effect, but I don't think she is actually. I think she is pretty strong. Thinking about it, she is pretty strong. The effect is pretty nice, but she's let down a little by the stuff and Force in her aspects. But then playing any event a little bit cheaper, like playing Force Throw for free, is pretty nice. Playing Force Lightning for free as well is pretty nice. So some good benefits. Just working out the aspects she's best in and making use of her ability. But I think she is pretty strong. Probably not as strong as the other ones, but still a pretty strong effect. So Barriss is pretty strong, but is a Grand Inquisitor as strong? Now he is pretty interesting. Probably say that all units are interesting, or all leaders anyway. But for Grand Inquisitor, he's another one. So this is one where both units in that same side need to use the Force, which is I think the first so far. But yeah, Grand Inquisitor needs to use the Force as well, and his effect is to attack with a friendly unit, and the defender gets -2 power for this attack. So it's kind of like Jinn, but a more updated one with Jinn, because Jinn's effect was allowed to attack with a unit, and the defender gets -1 power, whereas it's the same thing, but you have to use the Force to do it, so more workarounds to be able to pull that effect off. But you get the defender gets -2 power, so it does even less damage back. Also, unlike Jinn, it's got some better traits in Force, Imperial, and Force and Imperial at least. Force and Imperial are pretty good. Imperial is a pretty nice one to have for the dark side, and Force is a good trait to have, we know, because of all the good Force stuff. And with the Grand Inquisitor, he comes down a little bit earlier as well at 5 resources, so he plays quite early. 3-5 is a stat, so 3 power is decent, respectable. 5 health is not great though, because once again he's within range of being taken out just straight away by takedown, and even things like Force Throw, like Force Choke, that's the one. So not the best to health. It would be nice to have him one higher at 6, but it is what it is. But he does come down shielded, so he does get protected. Like, he doesn't have hidden, but he does have shield to protect himself, so he can protect himself from damage. But things like takedown still get through to him. And now he doesn't need the Force anymore. Now it's just on attack. The defender gets -2 power for that attack, so you can start taking out things a little bit easier. And remember, you can always then buff him up to kind of take him out of that range where takedown could just take him out, and get some nice benefits. And there are some really cool stuff in Yellow. Yellow Villainy has a pretty nice cards, and by putting another aspect with him, like you got them Force Throw, got some good stuff in every sides of blue, got some good kind of Force stuff. Red's got some good Forces to go with him. It's a pretty nice thing to go on him. Now, I don't think he's amazing, but I think he's good. I would say he's probably better than... I think he's better than Maul. It just hates me. It just makes me feel bad having to put things higher than Maul, even though, because I love the character, but he is better than Maul. But I think not as great. I think he might be a bit better than Third Sister, because Third Sister's stronger, but she's still 4 health, 5 health. And at least he comes in shielded, she comes in hidden, but at least that's what he's got. Takedown can take both of them out, but then open fire, like damage, can't really take Inquisitor out straight away. They can take out Third Sister. So I think, yeah, Grand Inquisitor is pretty good and a bit better. Still not as good as Snoke. Snoke being like the top of good at the moment, but then Grand Inquisitor being better than Third Sister. So that is the Villainy ones. Now we move on to the that's it, the heroic ones. We start with Cal Kestis. Now, Cal Kestis is never one that I like, because my partner did get me, because I don't play too much. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Star Wars. I just do like Star Wars, but not the biggest fan. But my partner did get me the Star Wars Survivor game with the tryout, which I thought, because she knows I do like Star Wars and playing Star Wars, she got me that tryout, and absolutely loved it. The game is amazing. Absolutely love playing it. Didn't really want to switch to a different game after. And Cal Kestis is now one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. So when there's like the whole thing about like the kind of spoiler like predictions about what the leaders are going to be, and Cal Kestis being one of them, especially seeing BD in the convention exclusives to know that Cal Kestis is a good part of it, because that's his little droid that comes with him. I was really hyped for Cal Kestis, but when he was revealed as this unit being a like an early deploy leader, like Sabine early deploy at 4 resources, but then with the Asajj Ventress stats at 3-4, I was pretty bummed out, because I was like, the stats are not amazing. I was like, okay, the cost pretty cool, deploys quickly. Stats aren't amazing. Still got Force, but then the effect as well was just pretty disappointing, because his effect is, once again, is another one. It's like both the heroic ones in Cunning need to use the Force. So he needs to use the Force, and all he does is make your opponent choose a ready unit they control and exhaust it. Now the problem with this is you don't get to choose. Like, you exhaust the unit, cool, that's pretty nice, but you don't get to choose what unit they exhaust. That's it. That's the one. I remember about the terminology. You don't get to choose what they exhaust. Your opponent gets to choose one of their ready units exhaust. So if they got multiple, they get to choose. You don't get to choose. You get to tap down what you want. They have to choose, and they're going to choose the one they don't care about less. So not a great effect there. He does deploy quite early, and once again, just like with First Sister, people saying he just gets taken down, takedown, things like that. Deploys early, gets taken out straight away. Not a good leader. But again, you can do nice things like waiting. Like one with my build up and testing a little bit, is I've been putting in things like things that buff him up. So like Jedi lightsaber and the other lightsaber, the new one. Can't remember the aspectless one. I can't remember the name of it, but I think constructed lightsaber. That one so you can buff him up on the turn play, which requires 3 resources. So you got one to play with. So what I've been doing is putting in jam communications in my lists, in my list for him. So that way, when it comes to deploy on the third turn of the game, you can jam communications, see if they've got things like take down or things that take him out, ditch those events that they've got that might take him out, and kind of hold off so you can deploy him, give him an upgrade so he's out of the range and a bit stronger, and then start wreaking havoc with him. So when he attacks, he then does the same thing on attack. The opponent chooses a ready unit to control and exhaust him. So if you're attacking into attacking the base, you got one unit, you can tap that unit down, which is pretty cool. So I think he is pretty. I was bummed out in the beginning, and then I started building and testing him out. It does seem quite fun. I played a fair few games against him as well. People playing very aggro lists, which seems pretty strong. I do like that, and he is going to be definitely one to pick up. I'm looking forward to the what's it called? I can't remember what the name of the things. It's not Showdown. Is special kind, not prestige. I can't remember what are they called. Let's have a look. Let's see if I can find out because it's bugging me now. That's it. Showcase. That's the one. I completely. I kept thinking Showdown, but that's not it. So I'm looking for the showcase of like him and Maul and stuff to get like hype for actually wanting to buy some showcases rather than just not really being bothered about them originally. But yeah, Cal I think is pretty good. I think he can actually be pretty strong. Because he's very early, can be strong. His effect isn't amazing, but he can be very aggro. And yellow we've seen has a lot of good aggro potential. So being an aspect is pretty nice. Being a force unit as well. So if you can play with red, which is never like aggressive aspect, you can play to be very aggro, giving him force throw things like that. He's pretty good. So I think he can be very strong, and yeah, I'm pretty excited for him. So that brings us to the last one, and we all know what that one is. That is my favorite character in all Star Wars, and that's Qui-Gon. I absolutely love Qui-Gon. I was so bummed when he got killed. When he got killed off in the film, I absolutely loved him. And when we throughout this game, I'm waiting for a Qui-Gon leader. And when he announced the Qui-Gon leader, I was like, I'm hyped for this. I am hyped. Then when I saw the effects, I was even more hyped. I played so many games with him, just tested him out. So he came out early, just testing him even before we got the full set. And he is the leader I'm probably going to test out the most when the set drops, or play the most when the set drops, because he just feels so good. Because his effect's all about like bouncing things in and out. So he's got an effect which, once again, requires the Force. So when he's in the lead area, he requires the Force, but when he's deployed, he doesn't require the Force. And his effect is to return any of your friendly non-leading units back to his own hand. Then you're allowed to then play a non-villainy unit that costs less than the returned unit from your hand for free. So that means you can bounce back, say, a 7 drop back to your hand. Now you can play out a 6 drop, as long as it's not a villainy, for absolutely free from it. So you can play out things that even are out of aspect, because playing for free doesn't incur the aspect penalty. So you can then play out, so I can play Ahsoka out, make your opponent discard a card, potentially rest something, then bounce it back and play out Bodhi Rook off it for free, to then do it again because it's a free cost, a lot less cost than Ahsoka. So I can then play Ahsoka again the next turn and get her on to play again, which is one of the benefits, bouncing back things that have one played, so you can play them out again, and then bring out something else in its place, even out of aspect, which is pretty solid. Now he's got some really good potential in all different aspects, which are cool, even like double cunning stuff, and that's why I'm really excited for him. And when he does deploy, he's got the same kind of effect, just now instead of using the Force, you just need to attack. So attack and complete an attack means attack and survive, and do the same thing as well. So on this deploy turn, you can potentially get 2 bounces back, get multiple things. And one thing I just love is playing things like I love him in green, because you can play home 1, bring back something out for cost 3 less, or 3 costs for free, then bounce home 1 back to bring out a 7 drop like Killer and Beck, and then Beck will also bring out something for free, and just keep doing that. Have a big unit, play a big unit out, bounce it back for even big, not just as big unit but not as big, and just keep doing that, like looping things that have on plays, bouncing them back, playing something else, and just spamming the board. And you got benefits in red as well with doing some cool stuff, double yellow, and also blue as well, with like using Luke Skywalker's on play and then bring out Anakin and things like that. That's pretty cool. So I think he's a very strong one. I'm going to say he's probably stronger than all the rest of the ones. I might be biased in this. I might be biased, but he is my favorite character in all Star Wars. He's got a very strong effect. Even though it requires the Force, it's still not too bad because you don't really need to care about using the Force early because bounce little things to get even littler things is not too bad. It's more when you get to the later game, you start getting big impact things like bigger cost cards and then bouncing back for just almost as big things and recycling some of those really strong plays on those bigger one plate units that have one plate effects. So I think Qui-Gon is really strong. A little bit biased on that, but I think that's where I'm going to put him. So that is all the leaders of all the different aspects. But now, uniquely to the set, we've got our first leaders that are just single aspect in just villainy and just heroism. I wonder if we will get units that are just blue and green, like they'll have affiliation to the light side or dark side. That'd be interesting to get, but this is our first solo villainy and solo heroism leaders. Let's see where they go. So, starting off with the one I've probably been enjoying and testing the most since the reveal started, and that is Darth Revan. Now, no idea who this guy is, but I did kind of try to listen while and worked a little video about the story of Darth Revan, and it seemed quite interesting from the bits I did pay attention to. And he does feel pretty good. Like, he's pretty nice. He's all about gaining more power whenever you take something out. So defeating something to gain more power. And that's pretty cool. So it means that he doesn't need to use the Force. It's pretty nice that he doesn't need to use the Force mechanics. He's not locked down by that. So you use different bases. But you can use the Force if you want to for other things, which is pretty nice. Like for Darth Tyrannus, it's a pretty nice thing to have the Force for. Or some of the cards in the new set that require to use the Force you can use. I've been playing, you can play him in any different aspect. He's got some good benefits in all different aspects. My favorite one has been in blue, because you can kind of take down a unit by attacking into it, and then go ahead and heal up the damage you took. Because his effect is when in the leader area, when a friendly unit attacks and defeats a unit, you can make exhaust this leader, and if you do, give an experience token to that friendly unit. So a unit takes out something, you get the boost up. Now he also does deploy at 5 resources, which is pretty early, but very nice. We like to have it when it deploy at 5. And then when he does deploy, he comes down as a 3/6 with Restore 1, so he does have a bit of healing to heal your base up. And now, just when a friendly unit attacks, defeats a unit, you give an experience token to that friendly unit. So no more now having to exhaust him to be able to do that. You just have to defeat a unit, and you can do it You can do it multiple times when he's deployed to give multiple things that defeat things some experience, which is pretty nice. So it even counts himself. If he defeats something, gets to boost him up. He also has his own lightsabers in Darth Revan's lightsabers that give him extra 2 tools of stats and give him grit as well, so he's even more powerful and more damage he takes, which kind of fares very well with him. And he just feels very, very great. I've been loving him in blue because just taking things out and just having that and the nice thing about blue is you've got a fair few effects that minus the stats on units. So reducing the units, like with the Talzin Assassin, you can bring it down, use the Force. You have to use the Force for that. But you get the minus the stats on a card by 3/3. So 3 less power, so the less damage you do back. 3 less health, so you can take him out a little bit easier. This makes it so you can weaken something down, either taking him out potentially, or just weaken him enough so you can then attack over him and then use Raven to just buff up after taking him out and take less damage back, so you're still pretty healthy. So pretty nice effects like that, which is pretty cool. And even now with things like Snoke down, reducing everything that's not a leader down by 2/2 makes it even easier for him to then take things out. And I feel he is pretty strong. And that's why I'm going to chuck him up, not in meta, because I don't think he's meta defining or going to impact the meta massively like that, but I think he is pretty strong. Because like how Obi-Wan can go ahead and buff up things without needing to attack, but then using the Force, he doesn't need to use the Force and just take out things and buff them up, so even if your opponent wants to take him out, he's more of a threat as well. So I think he is a very strong leader, so I can put him up just under Obi-Wan, because he's very great, and it's just nice to have non-canon stuff in the game, because that's why he's got the little bar. He's a little bit different. He's got a little bar, so he's a non-canonic character that's been added to the game as well, which opens up more things in the future for that. So I think he's pretty strong, and that concludes the Villainy one. Now we're going to get to the heroic one, and for that leader, it is Anakin Skywalker. So Anakin being I think a fan favorite. Pretty nice one, pretty interesting. Like, he is not portrayed in the films very well, but in the Clone Wars, he is pretty cool. Like, I think he's better portrayed in the Clone Wars series than he is in the films. In the films, he just feels like a kind of a whiny character, like very mopey. But then in the Clone Wars, he is portrayed very, very well. Nothing to the actor portrayed him, just how the story was for him in the in the prequels, in the second and third film, make him feel mopey. But he is a pretty cool character. Now, this is pretty unique. It's pretty nice because it opens up some pretty nice things. I love this leader. Since we had it revealed, I've been tested about. I think someone in my Discord mentioned about him being pretty strong in blue. So I thought, I'll go ahead and try that out and see what it's like. And I've actually love it. I do love the playing this leader in blue because I do love blue as one of my favorite aspects in the game. But he's pretty cool. He's unlike Revan. He does need to use the Force. He does need to use the Force mechanics. So you do need to use Force bases off like that. But he gets a good payoff from the Force because his action is use the Force, so lose your Force token, and you get to play a Villainy non-unit card from your hand, ignoring his aspect penalties. Now you'd be thinking, is that great? Playing a Villainy non-unit card, so it's got to not be a unit, but playing a Villainy events or upgrades, so not just events, but also upgrades. So as long as it's not a unit, but a Villainy card, you can play it ignoring its aspect penalties. And this is pretty nice because remember, it's ignoring its aspect penalties, not just the Villainy aspect, but all aspect penalties that card comes with. So you can play Villainy events that are out of aspect, so are not. If you play a blue base, playing Villainy events and upgrades that are not blue, but like green or red or yellow, and be able to play them ignoring all aspect penalties. So if it would normally cost give you an extra 4 sources to play because of the aspect penalty, you ignore all of that and just play it for its printed cost. So it's pretty nice, very good thing. So you've got some very powerful cards, and Power of the Dark Side is pretty strong. Obi-Wan Barrage is pretty strong. Palpatine's Return to get back your things like if you're playing blue, Anakin and Luke as well. Very strong cards in blue. And even using things like Force Lightning, a very powerful card as well, given we got more Force units. And since you need the get generated Force, you can have a Force unit on board. And also Force Choke, some very strong events in the Dark Side you can use with it. Even giving Heroic Power of the Dark, not Power of the Dark Side, No Glory only results is very strong as well. And when he deploys quite early, just like Revan at 5 resources, so both of them deploy quite early. But unlike Revan, he's got 4 power and 6 health. So he's got the same amount of health as Revan, but a bit more power, so a bit stronger. But he doesn't have Restore, so he doesn't have that. But he still has the action of playing out those Villainy non-units out. But now he's in this action. Still have to use the Force. You still have to use the Force on both sides. So it's like Offee. You do have to, Barriss Offee. You still have to use the Force, but you get to now an action more times than just once a turn because you have to tap on the leader side. Play a non-Villainy unit card from your hand in its aspect penalty. But that's the thing. Imagine that we're playing things like it gives you access to play Anakin Skywalker, one of the best legends in the set. A little bit easier getting both its -3, so getting a -6 fully just by playing him. And being able to trigger that easier because you're gonna have heroic Force units in there. They're gonna be defeated, and then play Villainy events to have the Villainy. So you have one each in there. Play Anakin a lot easier, and then playing things like having Luke Skywalker and then Obi-Wan Barrage over Luke is amazing. You can't even do that really in Palpatine because Palpatine from set 3, can flip both sides. He can play both heroic and Villainy cards, but he can't play them out of aspect like playing Luke Skywalker. But also have Obi-Wan Barrage on it. He can't do that. He can either have one or the other because he can't play green and blue because he's yellow himself, unless he wants to play more aspects on it. So having that is pretty powerful, and just testing him, he's been just insanely strong. I can continue testing because I just love him, and I feel he's going to be a meta leader because he plays very strong in blue. Blue's got very good cards, removal, very nice things, a lot of Force units, very good stuff, and then be able to incorporate some of the better Villainy cards in terms of events into his deck as well. Obi-Wan Barrage, Palpatine's Return, No Glory results, Force Lightning, Force Choke, Power of the Dark Side, things like that. Those very strong ones, ignoring not just the Villainy aspect, but the other aspect accompanying him is very strong. So that is going to be that's all the leaders now. We've gone through all 18 leaders. It's gone a bit long, but then I'm not just going to go for a leader. This is strong because this, and then on. I want to kind of give some explanation, kind of give a background because this is my initial theory. And kind of it's nice to explain why you've put it. Otherwise, people just go, "That's not right." If you haven't explained it, maybe it's like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense now." But yeah, if you feel so, this is where I've ended it. Then, so for the leaders, I feel are meta, like most effective tactics available. I feel like we've got Avar Kriss and Anakin. So even though I've kind of hit a little bit on the Force mechanic, saying that it's kind of a little bit of a down, negative because you've got to get generated Force to be able to use the effects. Avar Kriss being a gain the Force instantly without needing a Force base and Force gaining mechanics or things to gain the Force by just doing it herself. It's pretty cool, making use of those Force cards without. And Anakin having a very strong Force effect to incorporate some of the best cards from other different aspects into a deck together. Even though he's only got 2 aspects there, heroism and whatever you're on your base, he's still very strong, being able to get the best bits of some of the other cards. I feel he's pretty strong. And then for our strong leaders that are not the most effective, but are still very strong, we've got Qui-Gon, Darth Revan, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Kanan Jarrus, Kylo Ren, Mother Talzin, Barriss Offee, and Kestis as some pretty strong leaders as well. The ones that are not too strong, but are still good, they're pretty good. We got Supreme Leader Snoke, Grand Inquisitor, Third Sister, Maul, and Ahsoka. And then we go down further, so the leaders that they're okay, and that is just Morgan Elsbeth. I think she's okay. I haven't really figured out how great she can be, but then yeah, I feel she is okay, but there is potential she could be something I have missed, or she could be something, or some way she can be played to make full use of her effect. And then lastly, we have got some trash leaders, and those are Kit Fisto and Rey being what I feel is very terrible leaders. They're not great, and kind of want to try them out, but then I don't see much out of them. But if you can correct me and maybe see how they can be better, feel free to do so in the comments below. I will read them. I do read them and have a look into them. But I feel that's why I've left off here. So that is it from me today. Thank you for watching. Feel free to comment. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe. That's the one. And also remember, if you've got any disagreements, or if you feel any leaders should be higher or lower, or anything, or have some opinions on this, feel free to get some discussion going in the comments. I do like seeing what other people's views and kind of debating and basically just talking about it. So it'd be nice. So if you could do that, that'd be great. And until then, I'll see you next one. Bye for now.